Hey guys, welcome back. In this episode, we finally have enough knowledge that we could actually finish this calculator application. So what we're gonna do is finish it up. So for the people that don't know what's going on, well, at some point I told you guys I gave my students a homework where they had to build this design, and we did it in a different episode, which I'm trying and hopefully should be linked somewhere on the screen right now. And at the same time, we did a couple more episodes where we said, hey, how can we get a couple buttons, trigger the same event, go to the same function? And that's in this other video popping up somewhere, hopefully. And now we're going to continue that whole application. So going back here, let's just see where we're at. We currently have a display text. It has a hint. The user can't type in anything there, right? We disabled that part. Let's see, enabled, right? So the user can't just select it. Only way to have any numbers going in there is manually by code. What else? So the numbers are done, and they all call this function whenever they're triggered, which appends to our display the text of the button. So in that case would be if 7 is pressed, 7 would go up there, and so forth, so on. So we need to add a couple of functionalities and a couple other buttons. The easiest one would be the C, which would be kind of a reset. So let's go add that right now. We're going to create a function. I'm just going to create it right under this because it's much easier. So in that case, when reset happens, let's call it reset clicked. So I right clicked, so it's kind of easier to figure out, hey, this is a function that gets triggered when something is clicked and not just a function that's being used normally. Anyway, so when the reset is clicked, we want some stuff happening, and that's pretty straightforward. Currently, we just wanted to make the display set the text to nothing if we want. We could also try and see if there's any clear. So we do dot, is there a clear? There's clear animation, focus, so forth, so on. Not what we want. Let's see if we get the text. Notice that this doesn't give you back a string, right? It's still an object. It's an editable object. So we're going to click on it and see what it has as properties or functionalities. And the first thing we see, there's clear and there's length. There's a bunch of other stuff. And we're just going to set the clear. So either way would work, but I'm going to just comment this out because clear seems a bit more intuitive, right? So currently we want to reset. However, you're going to see this is grayed out. We need to connect it to my C. My C is currently over here. I'm going to right on click and reset clicked. So while we're at that, let's just run it. Nexus 1. Obviously the design is made in Galaxy Nexus, and I'm running it on Nexus 1 so I could film it for you guys. Usually I would just run this on my phone, and my phone is a Pixel, so this looks really nice on it. But over here you might see some ugliness, right? Eventually we'll learn how to build designs for everything and make it much cleaner. So 999, if we press C, it only shows us the hint because it took off the value of the text, right? So that's perfect. So 555, C, perfect. Next thing we need, let's go do the minus. The dot, I'm actually mean. Now currently we added the dot, but a real calculator, when you press the dot, there's a bunch of stuff happening. So 333 dot something. We can't add another dot. That's one thing. There should only be one. And if we add dot at the beginning when there is no value, it creates a 0 and then dot. So that should be pretty straightforward, but we need to get it out of the num grid clicked. Now you're saying, well, why don't we just add the functionality to figure out, well, this, if this click button dot text is the dot, do this. Well, why add extra conditions in a function where we don't need to? We could just separate it, which makes our life easier and makes it more readable. So if the dot clicked view v blah blah blah. So if it gets clicked, what do we want to do? Well, the first thing is we're gonna make sure that there's always only one dot in there all time. They can't be two. So we could just create a variable for us to keep track of it. So I'm gonna just create a boolean saying the dot exists and set that to false. So exists without a s at the end. So here I'm going to say if the negative, or actually let's just make it plain so everyone could see it. If the dot exists is false, this is the moment we want to add a dot, right? So display dot append dot. Pretty straightforward. We don't need to do an extra thing like this because this only triggers for the dot. So that's the first rule. And we also want to make the dot exist to false so it doesn't re-add anymore, right? So this would be to true, so it doesn't add anymore. Lowercase true. Okay. And you'll notice it's telling me you could simplify this if you want to something with just the exclamation marks, which says the negative of dot. Anyway, it's fine. You guys know it or you don't know it, we'll move on. Now we have that, we need to associate it for a dot. So this is our dot. You could have clicked it here and whatnot and change it here to dot clicked. So now this button is triggering this function or this method. What else? Well, we said if the text is empty, we want to be able to add a 0. So right before the append the dot, so if the text is empty, there should be a 0 beforehand, right? So there's a one thing going on before adding a dot at the end. And that's saying if my display dot get text dot length, oh, that's pretty good. So if the dot length is 0, I want to display dot append, and I want to append a 0. Okay. And if we run this, well, I think we did everything for 0. At least for now anyway. So if we run this quickly, let's see what happens. So there should only be one dot at all times, and if there's no value in the text field, we should see a 0 appearing. So 555 dot. You see extra dots would not go in there. And if there is no value, we press dot, we should see a 0. There's a prompt. When we reset, the dot exists is never set back to false. So that's one thing. So dot, what did I call it? Dot exist equals to false. So when we reset, we need to get that back to normal. And by the way, guys, I'm running this at every turn or at every new functionalities or every new change. So like this, you kind of understand what you just did and what's going on. Eventually you get to a point where you're not going to do that and you're going to write all of this before you run it, which is completely fine. This is probably the case I would have done and then figure stuff out. But if you're new, I really suggest every step that you take, every new thing that you create, you run it so you kind of understand what's going on the display, because it gives you back a feedback. Anyway, so if we run it, it should fix that part. Now, so let's just go check it out to make sure everything works. If I press dot, adds the 0, perfect, 666. Reset, dot, adds it again, nice. Can I add another dot? No, perfect. And reset brings it back to normal. So that was for the dot. It seems to be done. The C took into account the dot now. Well, the reset. Let's add the plus and minus. Currently, they do the same thing. So if you remember what we did for all the digits, which do the same thing, we're going to do that for the plus and minus. So I'm going to create a new function just for the plus and minus. Let's just add it randomly here. Public void plus and minus. These are operations, so let's call it operator clicked. And inside the code, we're going to figure out which operator it is. But first, let's figure out what they do. So if we're going to open up the calculator, when I press 999 and I do plus, the number stays and the next number replaces it, right? So it saves that number inside of a field. And then eventually when I press equal, it adds those two numbers together. So let's do that. So first thing I need to is save that number. So we're gonna add a float. Why a float? Because we're actually adding dots. Num1 equals 0.0f. And then come back to here and say num1. So when the operator gets clicked, num1 will equal to display dot get text. Oops, not what I want. Get text dot to string. Obviously a string can't go in a float, so we're gonna convert it to float dot parse the string, and we have that. So the value is gonna go in there. Perfect. And then we kind of want to make it invisible, right? So if I type 999 and I press plus, the value stays there, but it's gonna get replaced. And to do that, you could add another value saying it's another boolean or another variable that says, hey, it's about to get replaced, and we do that inside. Anyway, it's getting complicated. What I suggest is when we click plus or minus, we set the text value inside the hint and set the text back to nothing. The moment the user clicks something, it's going to add a text value, so the hint's going to go away, and that's pretty nice. So let's try that out, and you're going to understand what I'm trying to say. So just to make sure the num1 actually works, we're going to do a toast. Make sure that the conversion works and we got everything we want, just to show you guys. Context, get application context, num1 to cast it to string. So num1 did I do something messed up here? Cannot class to blah blah blah. Okay, you know what? String and we're just gonna give it value of num1, and it's gonna get us the value. And we're gonna give it a toast dot length short and show that. All right, so let's just run that quickly. Let's see what happens. Oh, you see it's grayed out. We didn't connect it, so let's go to our operators. Let's click on our plus. Where is a plus? Plus. It's over here. So we're gonna click on click to operators click. On click to operators click, and go back here, rerun it super quickly. Calculator we don't need right now. Let's go back to our device. So when I write 666 and I press the plus, the value is showing in the float. Perfect. So the float, the num1 as a float works fine. So we could actually delete this and say, so the display dot, so we're gonna change the hint, so that hint will disappear as soon as he enters another value, right? So rather than get hint, we're gonna set the hint to display dot get text dot to string. So whatever value is already there, we're gonna set it to that. Otherwise, the float is gonna make it appear .0, which when we don't want. And we're gonna set the display dot value or dot set text to nothing, right? So again, we could do the clear, which is nicer. Get text dot clear. However, doing that, we need to put the hint back to normal when we reset. Otherwise, it's going to store these numbers, randomness. So we could go here and type in display dot set hint to, I think it was 999.99 and so on. Right? Maybe a 0 would be better, but whatever. And let's just run it, see how it is. Now, the operators are clicked. They do those three things, whatever operator it is. However, we need to figure out what operator got clicked so that when the user presses equal, he could add or negate or multiply and so forth. So on. So let's just see everything works. 8, or I didn't reset, I don't know. 854 plus. So this value should change the moment I press a button. That's the whole point of the hint. And it does. Perfect. And if I press C, it shouldn't hold in, and it should go back to 999. That's amazing. Okay? So now we just need to figure out what operator was. So we could create a variable that keeps track of our holders. We could create enums, we could create whatever. I'm just gonna stick to string for now because we just want to make it fast and quick and easy. So string operator used. Okay, and by default it's nothing. So if there's a default on my reset, I also want to give back the operator to nothing. Sorry. And whenever a operator gets clicked, this is the moment I want to do operator used equal my view. So we know it's a button, right? So button, my V is the button I'm typecasting to whatever. Actually, you know what? We don't even need to typecast it because my view already has something called get text. No, it does not. So we're going to typecast the view. So view as, can I do that? Is, okay, so button, grab my V, and that's going to give me an error because that's not what we add to operator. That's a string we need. Dot get text dot to string. Okay, so that's gonna get those texts that we see in here, plus or minus or etc., which is really nice. It's super quick, so for so on. And just to see what that shows, we're gonna create a toast. I should probably make a function to make this faster. Get application context, operator used, and duration we're gonna do toast dot length short dot show. If you don't remember toast, go to my video about toast. They're pretty quick, informative, and etc. It's just to give back a feedback. So if we run this, by the way, if I'm going too fast, just pause the video, slow it down, figure stuff out. So if I press plus, it should store that 25 and tell me that the operator I use is plus. Right? Obviously, not all checks are being done. What if there is no value there? That could be one thing we should fix. So, like, if, you know, we'll fix it right now actually. So if the display dot get text dot length is 0, just do a return. So that's kind of gonna exit this function because it's no good, because of no good, right? And if we wanted to, what we could do, I messed up the thing, huh? There we go. If we wanted to, before closing it off, we could create a toast saying make text get application blah blah, no value entered, right? So not correct type of thing, and toast dot length short. So that looks pretty nice. Okay, so the last remaining thing left would be to add our equal operation. So we're gonna create another function and say public void operator equal pressed or clicked actually, and it gets the view v. Okay, and again we're gonna first go connected before we forget. I always forget these things. So on click, actually guys, I want to show you guys something if you didn't see this before. So one of the reasons I don't use the design on this part is you could do both ways, right? Design or the text, but the design gives you a lot of errors. And one error I noticed in this version is when you go on click and you select from the drop down list, which is the drop down is pretty intelligent telling you, hey, these are available and they come from the main activity, it actually gets an error. And I'm going to show you that error, just showing you right now. The on click for the equal is that, right? Go back to the main activity, the equal is still showing, hey, it's not being used. Well, that's because if we go on the text, you'll notice that on click, when you added it, it added this extra part that says main activity. And if you notice, it's highlighted saying, hey, this main activity, what the hell is it? It doesn't exist, right? Because you added extra text into it. So we're just going to delete that part and it should be fine. So this is why I kind of like the text. It gives you a lot of power, and there's a lot of error in the design. And every version you get different types of errors and whatnot. No one really focuses on those except for when you're starting out and you don't know much. So the equal gets clicked. So what happens when the equal gets clicked? Well, again, if we open the calculator, you'll notice that 999, when I press the plus, stores that value somewhere, and then I have to put new digits. If I don't put new digits, the equal shouldn't work, right? So give you an example, 999 equal would just give you 999, right? Plus equal would just add itself, which is extra operations we don't want. So what we could do is actually set the so say if we're just gonna actually do this. Our calculator is not that intense yet to say add itself whenever it doesn't have anything, right? So we want a second value to be added. If there is something there, we're gonna do another float, num2, and we're just gonna copy this actually because it's already done and makes our life easier. Right, we want to parse the display, get a new value. Now we're gonna do a switch. This is gonna let us know which operation got clicked or being used. So operator used. We're gonna open the curlies, put cases. What's the first case? We go back to an activity. We took the text from the display, so to make it, we could write plus here, but to make it work with future updates and whatnot, we're just gonna do oh man, that means I need to do a connection to it. No, for now we're just gonna do a plus just to make our life easier. So the case of the plus, well, I need to make, let's create another float right here. Float total equals currently 00f. In the case of the plus, we want to do total equals num1 plus num2. Simple as that. Then we do a break. The case of the minus, we want to do total num1 plus, minus actually, num2, break. And the case where the guy didn't click an operator but just clicked the equal, we want to say actually the default, we want to say in a toast get context, you need to select an operation, right? Toast dot length short dot show, and we could break into that too. So after we got the total, we want to set it inside the display. So display dot set text, and that's going to equal to my total to a string. So string, because we need to convert the float, so format, or for value of actually, of my total. Okay, so everything, if it works out, this should work. If you have any questions, let me know. Notice we didn't make it too complicated. We just went fast at it. We tried to fill in the little blanks. There's not much error checking. I'm pretty sure we could cause it to bug out, crash, and so forth, so on. Just kind of to give you a sense of how to do a calculator, at least a simplified calculator. So 6 plus 4 equals 10. Hey, we got something going, right? 9, well, it's keeping the last value, right? So rather than letting it keep the last value, what we're gonna do is, when you press equal, rather than setting it to the text, we're gonna set the hint to that, and we're gonna set the value to actually to empty. Actually, set no, get text dot clear. So what I mean by this is, when I press a new button, it'll be as if I'm doing a brand new operation. So let's just try that last thing. So C5 plus 6 equals 11. 8 would be a new value. 8 minus 0.5 equals 7.5. 6 would be a new value, right? This is perfect. This ends our calculator application. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know if you have any issues, comments, whatnot. Remember that this is a simplified version of the calculator. Eventually, we might just make a bigger, complex one with better design and so for some, but for now, it's perfect. Anyway, see you guys. Subscribe, let me know comments and whatnot. Cheers.